certain number of actions that we define as voluntary. We feel in control of those. Then over against that, there is all those things that are involuntary. But the dividing line between these two is very arbitrary. Because, for example, when you move your hand, you feel that you decide whether to open it or to close it. But then ask yourself, how do you decide? When you decide to open your hand, do you first decide to decide? You don't, do you? You just decide, and how do you do that? And if you don't know how you do it, is it voluntary or involuntary? Let's consider breathing. You can feel that you breathe deliberately, you control your breath. But when you don't think about it, it goes on. Is it voluntary or involuntary? So we come to have a very arbitrary definition of self. That much of my activity which I feel I do. And then that then doesn't include breathing most of the time. It doesn't include the heartbeats. It doesn't include the activity of the glands. It doesn't include digestion. It doesn't include how you shape your bones, circulate your blood. Do you or do you not do these things? Now, if you get with yourself and you find out that you are all of yourself, a very strange thing happens. You find that your body knows that you are one with the universe. In other words, that the so-called involuntary circulation of your blood is one continuous process with the stars shining. If you find out that it's you who circulates your blood, you will at the same moment find out that you are shining the sun. Because your physical organism is one continuous process with everything else that's going on. Just as the waves are continuous with the ocean, your body is continuous with the total energy system of the cosmos. And it's all you. Only you're playing the game that you're only this bit of it. But as I tried to explain, there are in physical reality no such things as separate events. Look, supposing when you got up in the morning, you had to switch your brain on. And you had to think and do as a deliberate process, waking up all the circuits that you need for active life during the day. Why, you'd never get done. Because you have to do all those things at once. So then, just in the same way as you don't know, you don't focus your attention on how you make your thyroid gland function. So in the same way, you don't have any attention focused on how you shine the sun. Doesn't it really astonish you that you are this fantastically complex thing? And that you're doing all of this and you never had any education in how to do it? Never learned, but you're this miracle? The point is that from a strictly physical, scientific standpoint, this organism is a continuous energy with everything else that's going on. Only we've got this little partial view, we've got the idea that no, I'm just something in this body. The ego. That's a joke. The ego is nothing other than the focus of conscious attention. It's like a radar on a ship. The radar on a ship is a troubleshooter. Is there anything in the way? And conscious attention is a designed function of the brain to scan the environment, like a radar does, and note for any trouble-making changes. But if you identify yourself with your troubleshooter, then naturally you define yourself as being in a perpetual state of anxiety. And the moment we cease to identify with the ego and become aware that we are the whole organism, you realize as the first thing how harmonious it all is. Because your organism is a miracle of harmony. All this thing functioning together. Even those corpuscles and creatures that are fighting each other in the bloodstream and eating each other up. If they weren't doing that, you wouldn't be healthy. So what is discord at one level of your being is harmony at a higher level. And you begin to realize that, and you begin to be aware too that the discords of your life and the discords of people's life, which are a fight at one level, at a higher level of the universe, are healthy and harmonious. And you suddenly realize that everything that you are and do is at that level as magnificent and as free of any blemish as the patterns in waves, the markings in marble, and that this world is really okay. Can't be anything else, because otherwise it wouldn't exist. But the reality underneath physical existence, or which really is physical existence, because in my philosophy there's no difference between the physical and the spiritual. These are absolutely out-of-date categories. It's all process. It isn't stuff on the one hand and form on the other. It's just, it is pattern. Life is pattern. It is a dance of energy. Everything is standing right out in the open. It's just a question of how you look at it. So you do discover, when you realize this, the most extraordinary thing to me that I never cease to be flabbergasted at whenever it happens to me. It is that you are looking right at the brilliant light now, that the experience you are having, which you call ordinary everyday consciousness, pretending you're not it, that experience is exactly the same thing as it. There's no difference at all. See, the source of all light is in the eye. If there were no eyes in this world, the sun would not be light. You evoke light out of the universe. You, by being this organism, call into being the whole universe of light and color and hardness and heaviness and everything. But in the mythology that we've sold ourselves on during the end of the 19th century, when people discovered how big the universe was, and that we live on a little planet in a solar system on the edge of a galaxy, which is a minor galaxy, everybody thought, we're really unimportant after all. And we put ourselves down. See? But actually, it's this little funny microbe, tiny thing, crawling on this little planet, it's way out somewhere, who has the ingenuity, by nature of this magnificent organic structure, to evoke the whole universe out of what would otherwise be mere quanta. There's jazz going on. But you see, this little ingenious organism is not merely some stranger in this. This little organism on this little planet is what the whole show is growing there, and so realizing its own presence. Does it through you. And you are it.
You see, we all know what reality is, but we can't describe it, just as we all know how to beat our hearts and shape our bones, but cannot say how it is done.
If you take such a tiny creature as a fruit fly, it is aware of all sorts of weird little animals and objects and spores floating in the atmosphere which we don't even notice unless we've got a microscope around. and it criticizes them as being inferior animals, whereas human beings are things that it doesn't comprehend. And we see these far-off objects floating in the heavens, and we have only the vaguest idea of what they may be. That is to say that wherever you are, and whoever you are, and whatever you are, you're in the middle.
Your own organism keeps functioning without your apparently having anything to do with doing it. That process is continuous with, is one process with all the behavior going on around you, of other people, of nature, and of the entire universe. What is reality? Obviously, no one can say, because it isn't words. It isn't material, that's just an idea. It isn't spiritual, that's also an idea, a symbol. Reality is this. That's to say, we confuse signs, words, numbers, symbols, and ideas with the real world. Most of us would have rather money than tangible wealth, and a great occasion is somehow spoiled for us unless photographed. There is a point at which it becomes perfectly clear to you that you are not something struggling against everything else or being victimized by everything else, but that what is going on, insofar as you can experience it, is your own doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you got one?
Because here we are, you know, we think we make sense. I'm talking English to you, and you understand the meaning of my words. But let's just drop this situation into another context. What is the meaning of your understanding what I'm saying? See? We're all sitting around here, and you are listening to these signals, and you are interpreting them into signals of your own. But look at the situation from above. What a crazy assembly. Because what we're doing, gathering here, making noises, is essentially no different from what this tree is doing out here, spreading out its branches with all these little twigs and things sticking out. And my joke, what is it doing? Well, you say, if we look at it from a practical point of view, those leaves have a purpose. And they are to absorb moisture and sunlight and to sort of go down into the tree and help the sap to come up. And then the real object of this is that it grows some kind of flower or cone, and that gets fertilized, there are little seeds inside. And they come out and fall on the ground and get blown about, and some get picked up by birds and distributed, and they make other trees, you see. That's the thing, that's what it's all about. That's a very, very important function. Now, actually, it's sheer nonsense. Is this tree is going and say, wowee, isn't that great, you know? Let's spread this around and get everybody else going. But we're doing exactly the same thing. And the trouble with us as civilized people is we don't know it. We think we're being serious. And that we have tremendously important schemes going on, and that it's desperately vital that, for example, the human race survive.
So, just as we have a field of vision, which is so wide, so the present moment is not, as the clock indicates, a hairline. The present moment is a field of experience, which is not what we would call instantaneous, much more than that. So that within the present moment, we can hear intervals between tones and rhythms, so that we get the feel of a sequence. going on. So when I talk about the eternal now, please don't confuse it with a split second. It's not the same kind of thing.